This is Kristen, and today I'm here with singer-songwriter Bill Abernathy. How are you doing today, Bill?
I'm doing great, Kristen. How are you?
Good. So I wanted to have you on the program, introduce a little bit about your music, and kind of chat about what you've been doing since your latest album release.
Great, great. Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So I have been reading over your biography. I see that you started playing music fairly young and then basically took a break from it. Talk to me about that journey of coming back to performing.
Well, I started playing music when I was really young. I can still remember vividly the Christmas morning that I opened the box and I got my first guitar. It's kind of one of those cool kid memories that you have. I played for quite a while. I mean, I started playing when I was probably about 8, and then when I was in my early 20s, I put it down and did what I would consider to be normal life things. So I had kids and marriage and career and all that. When my kids got finished with college is when I really kind of picked the guitar back up earnestly, right? So I always played a little bit, I always wrote a little bit through those years, but really didn't take it too seriously until I actually had time to do that. So when my kids graduated, I picked the guitar back up. I had a bunch of notes that I had taken over the years, and maybe a song or two that I'd written over those times. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to get back at it. And so went through all my notes, sat down, played my guitar, wrote a few songs, and now with Crossing Willow Creek, this is the third album that we have released since I started that.
And do you find that the journey was difficult making those connections in the music scene again, or did it pretty much pick up for you relatively quickly?
Well, I think in the music industry, it's not necessarily what you know, but it's who you know. And I had a few connections from back in the day. And of course, when I went back into the music studio, I rekindled some of those old relationships. Plus, developing new ones with people that I met along the way. The music industry is always interesting, and so as you get started, you have a few connections, and then you meet a few more people, and then you meet a few more people, and you meet a few more people, and I'm meeting you today. So I would say that no, I don't think it's easy, but there are a lot of people out there that are interested in music, and a lot of people that are interested in helping you share your music. So um, again, much like you today, the folks, Michael and the folks at MTS Management, are doing a great job of giving me some of those opportunities. So I think it's going pretty well at this point.
Awesome. Now, I see that you label yourself above all as being a singer-songwriter, that you really focus on being a storyteller. Talk to me a little bit more about the writing process for you.
Well, it's kind of a mess, to be honest with you. So I'm one of these guys that works off inspiration. So some writers will sit down and say, okay, it's Tuesday, I'm going to write a song. I'm really not that guy. So when something comes up, or I hear a good story, or I meet somebody, they've got a good story, or, something happens to me or somebody that's close to me, um, I tend to like to write down the story. So what happened today? Why was it important? What impact did it have? And then I will go through this process, which I would like to tell you is extremely organized, but it's not. It's a bit of a mess, actually. So different ideas, different thoughts, different lines written on Post-it notes or pieces of paper kind of all over my house. And eventually it all kind of comes together and it becomes a song. So that process is really inspiration based. And once I get the inspiration, it becomes kind of organized chaos. How's that?
And so, does the lyrical content most always come first and then the guitar riffs or the music later, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, no, I am a pure lyrics first guy. So I always write the lyrics first. Now, in the course of that, I mean, you may get a melody line in your head or something, but I always write the lyrics first because, as you mentioned earlier, Kristen, I'm a bit of a storyteller, and so the story to me is what is important. and the message that you're trying to convey, the information that you're trying to get across. So to me, that's the most important part. So I always focus on the lyrical structure first, and then after that comes a melody line, and then after that you start, just doctoring it up with different things. So, guitar licks or whatever. But to me, all of the music really has to point at the lyric. So I don't want the music to be a distraction from the lyric. I really want the lyric to be the focus of the song. So though I incorporate a lot of cool guitar licks and that kind of thing in my writing, those are all there to accentuate the lyric itself.
And so where does the inspiration usually come from for you? Is it everyday life? Are there certain subjects or themes that you're more passionate about than others when writing?
Yeah, I'd like to tell you again that there's process, but there's not. So sometimes it's something that just happens to me. So one particular day, the single that we have out right now, the Cry Wolf song, actually was inspired one day when I was sitting in my house after I'd had an Achilles surgery, and I had the television on, and I'm a bit of a news guy. I like to watch the news, and I started noticing how quickly the breaking news that was popped on the TV started replicating itself across social media with minimal to no fact checking at all. And I got to thinking about that, and I thought, man, we're populating this stuff, and we're just replicating all this information, but we're not really taking any time to really validate it. So at some point, is that not like Crying Wolf, like the boy who cried wolf, the old fable? And that became the inspiration for that song. So I never know where it's coming from, but sometimes it just drops by. How's that?
Definitely. I hear a lot of artists talk about that, how they can just be going through their day to day and something will just pop in your head that you have to write about.
Yeah, I think you get an idea, and in my real job, I talk with a lot of people, and sometimes they'll say something and just say, well, that's kind of a cool line, or they'll say something that tell a story about what what they've been going through. Maybe it's one of my friends or coworkers, that is going through a particular thing with, their kids or whatever the case may be. So you just really never know where it's going to come from, but you just have to be open to be able to accept it and then write it down. This is one of my bad things. I tend to say, oh, I'll remember that, and then that's usually not such a good thing. So,
are there any types of tricks or things that you've learned to do when something pops up, like an inspiration for a song, and like you said, it's a challenge sometimes to write it down? Is there anything that you've done to kind of get better at capturing that?
Yeah, I think that, the use of technology. So, we all have, phones, and we can do, little voice recordings of ideas, or you can make a note into your phone or write it down on a piece of paper. I'm getting better about that. But I think that the use of technology makes it a heck of a lot easier, because you generally don't always have a pencil and a piece of paper handy, but you generally always have your phone. So send yourself a text. In a simple way.
That's true. It's amazing what you can do over your cell phone today as far as creating music or writing things. It makes it super simple.
Yeah, it does. It certainly helps with some of the ideas and the production and all that. It's a great tool.
Now, of all the songs that you've written, and I know this is probably a hard question and probably one that you've gotten in the past, but is there any one favorite song that you have, and why?
Well, that is a good question, and it is a hard question. So I think that a songwriter, you have different moods or different feels that you're going through it. And I have some songs that are pretty light and airy and kind of fun. And when I'm in one of those kind of moods, I would say that that's one of my favorite songs. When I'm more in the introspective, what I call the funkiness of singer-songwritery, I might want to reach back into one of the more deeper songs and consider that to be my favorite. But if I have to pick one, I would have to say that my favorite song is probably, it's actually on the Crossing Willow Creek song album, and it's a song called Changes that I over the years. And it talks about how the change in your life can really help you to understand not only who you are, but where you are and where you need to be. The tagline in that song is that change always teaches us to be everything that we're destined to be. I think that that particular song, we recorded 3 verses, but as I go through life and a new change comes up, I'll tend to scribble down a thing. It could probably have 100 verses, right? But I think of all the songs that I've written, that's probably my favorite because it really does. It's pretty personal, and it reaches down into a deeper part of yourself to try to understand how you're going to adapt and adjust to all the changes that life throws at us every day.
Right. And so do you have any advice, having come through a lot of changes in your life, especially around your music, for new musicians who may be getting into the music industry?
Sure. I think that, and again, a very good question. I think that one of the things that as a writer or an artist, I call myself a singer-songwriter, but you have to be true to yourself. I think it's pretty easy to go out and say, hey, this person's popular, this person's cool, I'm going to try to be like them. I think that that's really not being true to yourself and true to your talent, true to your ability. So my suggestion or my advice to anyone would be to try to be yourself. There's nothing wrong, and actually it's a very good thing to learn other people's music and learn, how they play and, how they reach the sounds that they get, even understand their writing process. I think that that's great. I mean, just because I'm a lyrics first guy doesn't mean that everybody is. Some guys will come up with a really cool guitar lick and that will become a song. There's no right way or wrong way to do it, but I think if you try to stay true to yourself and have something to say, then the rest of it kind of takes care of itself, right? So I wouldn't sit down to write a song just to be cranking out another song. I would want to have something to say or some message that I wanted to convey, and then from that I would write a song.
And now, for our listeners out there who maybe this is the first time that they're hearing your music, or, they're just now picking up your music, what would you say about yourself and the music you create to them, to new listeners?
This is a bit of a social statement for me, but I think in today's world, we tend to like to put people in boxes. We like to, particularly in music, we like to say that this is a rock guy, and this is a rap guy, and this is a country guy, and this is a folk guy. And I think that's unfortunate, because I think once you get that label, that's really the audience that you reach out to. I think that if you listen to, my stuff, you're going to find that there's a bit of rock, and there's a bit of country, and there's a bit of folk, and there's a bit of blues, and there's even a little bit of jazz thrown in from time to time. Really hard to classify, what it is I do and pick a genre. I won an award for having a rock album, and on my Find Away album, the one that we released prior to Crossing Willow Creek, it won awards as a rock album. On that album was a song that played on folk radio that actually was #1 in the United States for a while. So, it's just be ready to be versatile. My music it's really different on a genre standpoint, So I really like acoustic stuff. I really like the acoustic feel. I like acoustic guitars. But on each of my albums, we don't just do all acoustic guitars. We play different instruments. And again, the music is to emphasize the lyric. So if the lyric has more of a up-tempo rock kind of theme, then that's the style of music that we're going to play. And if it has kind of a blues theme, there's a song on Crossing Willow Creek that's actually called the Uppy Blues. Well, it has a very bluesy theme. So you may hear, different sounds. You may hear saxophones and, B3 organs and different things. So my music, I try to keep it pretty versatile because it keeps me pretty interested in making it. And as you listen to my albums, just understand that I do try to keep things pretty versatile across the board with all the different songs.
And having so much versatility in your music, who has influenced or inspired you musically?
Another great question. So, my favorite artist of all time is Dan Fogelberg, just done, because I think that his music really exemplifies the kind of versatility that we were just talking about. So, everybody's familiar with Fogelberg's hits, Longer and Leader of the Band and all those. But the songs that I really appreciate with him are the songs that are a little bit deeper into his repertoire. So on Crossing Willow Creek, for example, we covered a Dan Fogelberg song that's called Icarus Ascending. And it's an absolutely beautiful song. It's a song that's meant something to me at many times in my life. And so I would say that he is by far my favorite. One of the reasons is he does a lot of the things that I attempt to do, as far as making sure that the lyric is the focus of the music and then pointing the music back to the lyric to emphasize what you're trying to say. So that is one person. Of course, I'm a big fan of several people in today's world. I'm a big John Mayer fan. I think John Mayer is a really, really good writer. And then, some of the classics, Crosby, Stills, Nash. I'm kind of a big Stephen Stills fan. I was listening to, oddly enough, just came up on my playlist this morning as I was driving into my office, Jim Croce. Jim is a great writer. So that's kind of my thing, But that's what I like, and that's how I was influenced all these other days, all these other years.
Definitely. Now, do you find that your musical influences kind of change as you go, or that they've been pretty much a lot of the same influences for a long period of time?
Oh no, I think I think that you can limit yourself, with what you listen to, and what influences you. So, I listen to a lot of different styles of music. My playlists are pretty versatile, all the way from really mellow, acoustic guys, through, hair band rock of the 80s. I loved Kansas and Boston and that kind of music. Great influences, great musicians. And up until today, there are a lot of musicians out there that are very versatile and are very, very talented. And I think that you should listen to what people have put out and listen to what people have put out there. And you may find inspiration about anywhere. I mean, I'm not a fan necessarily of rap music, but that said, some of the rap musicians have some really, really cool lyrics. Tupac is one great lyric writer. So though I don't necessarily appreciate the genre of music, I do listen and read and try to figure out what they're talking about. So, I think it's important to keep different sounds and different feels going through your head to keep you kind of fresh. And plus, that my kids are younger, and so when I'm starting to write really old sounding stuff, they tell me, "Stop that, Dad. Write something fresh."
I certainly agree on the fact that you should certainly keep an open mind. I do think that marketing puts heavy labels on things sometimes, and I think that can kind of turn fans or listeners away because they think, oh, well, this is labeled as country, but I don't like country. But if you just listen to the song, for example, you might find something that you like in it. And I think you made a great point there about even if you don't like rap music, there might be some incredible lyrics to, like Tupac, for example, that really could inspire what you're doing.
Exactly. So when you're a songwriter, I think it depends on what you're talking about. So on Crossing Willow Creek, right, the opening song of that album it sounds very country rock. It sounds very 70s, very Eagles-ish, that kind of music. Well, the reason that we did that is because that's the time of my life that I was talking about, and it just made sense to write that and record it in that kind of sound. So I think it's just important to, you know, that we've learned over the years to have 3 minute and 5 second attention spans, right? So the radio has taught us this, right?
Right.
That's what most songs like to be. I mean, I always get a kick out of the Billy Joel line that's from called "The Entertainer." That said it was a beautiful song, but it ran too long. If you want to have a hit, you got to make it quick. So they cut it down to five. I think that we've been taught that, and so, and particularly in today's world where people don't really buy albums, right? They buy singles. They buy, you know, single songs.
Right.
So when you hear an artist that sounds country rock, or you hear an artist that sounds jazz, that's who you think that artist is. I think it's important, as you said, to look across all of that and say, who is this person really, and you know what songs are actually on their work that maybe don't hit the radio, but you might find interesting.
I definitely agree. I know with radio and putting together this show, a lot of things is formatting, and you do have to sometimes cater to a little bit shorter songs because it's
Sure.
what content can you put into a 2 hour frame, you know?
Right.
But that
No,
doesn't mean that there's not some amazing songs out there that aren't, you know, 8 and 10 minutes, because, you know, there truly are. And I think people, if they pick up a single and they like it, they definitely should go check out the rest of what that artist or that band has to offer.
yeah, without question, because you never know what you're going to get, right? You may get something else that you really, really like that's very similar to the one that you already picked out, or you may find out that there's maybe a little bit of variety and a little bit of more depth in that artist that you may like even more, right?
Most definitely. And sometimes some of the best songs aren't the one that's the hit single. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of digging for it. It's on the B side or whatever.
Yeah, that's another thing that I always appreciated about some of the artists that I followed, and I'll just use Songbird as an example again. On his albums, he always put a hit or two, right? He would write hit songs and put them on there, and then the rest of the music that was on the album was really the music that I was more interested in. So, you know, but some of them were 8 minute songs, just saying.
Right. Now, since your release of Crossing Willow Creek, what else have you been up to musically, like creating videos? What else have you been doing surrounding the album?
Well, that's a great question because we're now in the process of actually doing this. So one of the things that you know, when we released Crossing Willow Creek, we did a lyric video of the first single, which is the Cry Wolf song that we released first. And I got a lot of requests back from fans saying, why don't you do some more video stuff? Not something that I've done a lot of. I mean, there's some video out there of me on YouTube, you know, doing live stuff and what have you, but not something that I've just went out to say, okay, we're going to go make a video. So we have this idea, and whether it's a good one or not will remain to be seen. But as the last two albums that I've came out with Find a Way and Crossing Willow Creek, are very produced, right? A lot of different instruments, a lot of different players. We have this idea that actually came from a fan to do what we call acoustic sessions. So probably me and another guitar player and a bass player in the studio and just record songs live, which would be kind of fun. It's a little dangerous, but it might be kind of fun. So we're going to do that, and it would be a good way for me to actually test some of the new music that I've written as well, to go in and just record it, throw it out, and say, hey, what do you guys think of this song? So it might be kind of fun.
Definitely. I think there's something to definitely be said about like the old style of recording too, where you pretty much just came in and what you recorded, what you did is what went on record. And, you know, today there's so much more to technology and so much editing that can be done that I think it's a good thing to kind of just, like you said, go in there with a bass player and just kind of see what you've got.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I'm much more comfortable in that world. You know, I mean, I record at the studio and, you know, all that stuff, but my favorite time in the studio is when I go in and just record the songs, right? No tracking necessarily, you know, a mic on my guitar and a mic on my vocal, and I just do what we call rough tracks, right? These are the songs. And oftentimes I've found that we end up using some of that, on down the road months later when we're trying to finish up the song, because I think that when you play live, it's a lot easier to be more expressive with the songs. And of course, I'm a guitar player, so when I practice live, right? So I think it's easier to be more expressive when you're doing that. So I think that these acoustic sessions, I think that's what we're going to call it, at least the working title. These acoustic sessions may be kind of fun to really kind of let me be more expressive in the middle of the music, because as much as my studio musicians love me, we will do that without a click track. So they will love that. Studio musicians love recording without a click track. I'm being facetious. So, yeah.
Well, I definitely like the raw quality too, and just kind of stripping it all down and not having so much technology. I think that you can really get some really good, like you said, expressive stuff from some of those sessions.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's without question. It's a good way to go. So I'm kind of, we're going to start that in about a month, and so I'm kind of looking forward to it. Number one, because I think it'll be fun. Number two, it'll be kind of an interesting dynamic to play around with in the studio. So it'll be fun.
So now, as far as the rest of 2019, are there any tours, show dates that we should be knowing about, or anything else that's coming up that we should be checking out on social media or checking out on any of your websites that you're going to be doing?
Yeah, so we've got shows. I've got shows coming up, and they range. So it may be a full band, blown out show, or it may just be me doing the acoustic thing, which I really enjoy. But my suggestion would be that, if you want to follow me on social media, whatever you use, I'm there. So, Facebook, I'm Facebook, Bill Abernathy Music, right? So just Bill Abernathy Music, and you'll find me. I have my website as well, BillAbernathy.com. So all of the links into Twitter and Instagram and, all the other social media venues are there that you can get to, and you can poke through there a little bit, listen to a little bit of music, and hear a little bit more of my story there on my website. So it's a good place to start.
Most definitely. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners today, or anything that I haven't asked you about?
Well, I think that it's great you doing what you do, and I appreciate that. Everybody that makes music has to have a way for people to get out, to hear it. And what you do and the other folks in your industry do a great job, and I really appreciate it. Anything else that I'd like to say? Listen to the songs, right? One of the things that I really, really enjoy back from fans are comments, right? So on my website, there's a place where you can leave comments. And some of them say, "Bill, this is a great song," blah blah blah. Some of them say, "Man, this sucks," whatever. I'm easy that way. But go onto the website, listen to the music, and give me some ideas of what you think. That's always fun for me.
Most definitely. So for our listeners out there hearing this show, make sure you hit Bill up. Tell him what you think of the songs that we're going to play here tonight, and check out the rest of what he has out there. And so with that, I definitely thank you for taking the time to speak with me today and for sharing with me about your music and everything that you do.
Well, thank you, Kristen. And again, I really appreciate what you do. Giving people another way to get their music heard, which is a great thing. And I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be happy to get your links out there, get you out on outlawreview.com, which is our website, and then also on the River Bottom Radio Show, where everyone can hear your music.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Kristen. I really appreciate it, and enjoy the listen. I hope you like it.